age-old dream of flying was realized for the first time in the late 18th century. And like a fever dream of the ensuing mechanical age, engineers devised all manner of motorized contraptions. Some of them imitated the flight of birds. That did not go anywhere. But bold aviators had more practical dreams. They would fly machines that today are known as aeroplanes. Some of them resembled boats with wings. They were fragile, and often things went wrong. Aviation had its early disappointments and groundings, but that did not deter others from pursuing the great purpose. But what to do with passengers? Were these planes powerful enough to carry people, and if so, where to tuck them away? Not much later, stronger engines allowed for greater payload, and planes were built like taxis. But that was not enough. In order to carry a significant number of passengers, massive, clumsy planes had to be built, which required an array of high-powered engines. But these behemoths could hardly get off the ground. The real future of aviation was thought to be the airship. Like the highways now filled with automobiles, the skies would teem with airships. As the crowning achievement, the German engineer Graf Zeppelin built airships of gigantic proportions. They could carry a multitude of passengers on intercontinental voyages. Zeppelins began regular flights from Europe to India, to Brazil, to the United States. The cabin was so spacious that during flight, passengers enjoyed luxuries on a par with the much slower ocean liners. Dining rooms, grand pianos, even a dancing hall. And then it all ended with the catastrophe of the Hindenburg. The promise of the Zeppelin was never completely discarded, but it took until the end of the 20th century for the idea to be revived. Today, applying non-flammable gases and with different applications in mind, a new breed of high-tech engineers has emerged.
I teach aerospace engineering here at Queen Mary, University of London, and this is my laboratory. Here we've got an aircraft, and what we're doing here is we're checking the safety of the structure. We're bending it with a ton of load to check these panels don't buckle. We've got strain gauges on it, and then we'll measure the deflections in there to check we don't have any distortions. But most of the work we do in here is aerodynamics, and this yellow thing is a big wind tunnel. The flow comes from the back of the room here, is coming through here, goes round under the floor, and gets up to about 100 miles per hour in there. So we can test things subsonically, less than the speed of sound, and give us useful information about the forces, measure the forces on bodies like this thing. This is a model of an airship or an airship body. We can measure the forces on the balance. And also we set up a little test here with a smoke filament coming over the top, round the nose of the airship. You can see the flow there coming over the top. But come with me, come right round. Here, this is a smoke tunnel. This is used for visualization. You can see these comb of smoke filaments coming down through the smoke tunnel. And it's coming round this model, which is a model of the airship. It's round, spherical, with a cone underneath, like a raindrop. The reason it's fat and round like this is so it can be maneuverable. Now, Zeppelins, the big German Zeppelins, were long shapes like cigars, and they could barely maneuver when they turned. They were fast, but they could barely turn. So this airship can turn quite quickly. And that's a little breakthrough, just reducing the drag by a factor of 2. The test here isn't exactly representative because there's a thin layer of air we call the boundary layer, just a millimetre above the surface, and that layer of air dictates the entire flow round the airship. But on the big airship, it'll be turbulent. There'll be little eddies in that boundary layer, and that'll make the flow more turbulent close to the body, and the separation region, it'll be closer, should be even lower drag. So I'm hopeful this airship will be manoeuvrable, and from these tests I'm quite confident we'll be able to manoeuvre close to the trees, round and near them, and that's the important thing I want to get done in this test. And from what I've seen today, what we've seen here, and the testing I've done in the wind tunnels, I'm confident we'll have a good airship.
Dr. Dorrington, what happened to your left hand? Can you show it?
Well, when I was a small boy, I had an accident. I was always interested in space flight and wanting to get to orbit and things like that. And I was building a rocket when I was about 14 years old. And I was holding the rocket in this hand. And I didn't understand propellants. If the chemistry teacher had just taught me the year before, but I was only 14, and the lesson I needed was a year later about oxidation reactions. And I had a spontaneous explosion from holding the rocket. Luckily I lived, but at that time it was a 50% chance it could have gone this way, and luckily I'm alive today. So I recommend any small children or teenagers at home, be careful how you mess around with rockets, because I can't be an astronaut now. For a long time I've had a dream of just floating or flying, zooming through the air. Dreams during the night as well, just flying through cities and through valleys and under bridges and flying everywhere. Just floating above the surface, seeing life. We need something very manoeuvrable, and a balloon isn't ideal. Something like this would be much better if it could be quiet as well. That's the important thing. It's got to be really quiet. You can see here what I've got on the back. Here's a small jet engine, just enough to lift my weight. We can realise our dreams. That's the thing that I've learned in this whole project, is that you start from a concept, you do the design, and you can actually see your ideas being made, and you can realise dreams. It's just a simple step, and it just requires a little bit of determination. But you can do it. You can do it whenever you want. You just have to have that dream, and then just zoom up. That's the thing. Let's go fly. Let's go fly.
Cardington, north of London. In these gigantic hangars, most of Great Britain's glorious airships were built. Here, Dr. Dorrington plans to test his new prototype.
So that was the first time it's flown, and I think on the whole, I'm quite confident again. Pride's not quite the right feeling, to be honest with you. Throughout this whole project and until now, I feel quite a lot of heaviness, which is quite the difference to the levity you should, really want to have. An airship's about levity, being light, but I feel a little bit heavy about the situation still. But I'm getting back some confidence.
Because of what do you
The
think?
past. Because of the past. I mean, for me, it's a little bit difficult getting in an airship again. It always brings back memories, and you asked me earlier about safety. It brings back all these memories, and it's always 10 years ago, but I still think about that constantly, and it's nice to get back in the air. If you've had an accident on a bicycle, anyone knows it's the best thing you can do is get back on a bicycle.
What Dorrington is referring to is a catastrophe which befell him with an earlier airship he built. That's why evacuation measures in this test are a top priority. Dorrington's plan is to fly this airship over the jungle canopy and use it as a platform for studying and filming the largely unexplored treetops. We chose the area of Kaieteur Falls deep in the rainforest of Guyana in South America. Here, untouched landscape and diversity of flora and fauna are found in perfect unity. Near the waterfall is an airstrip where we flew in the components of the airship, a large quantity of compressed helium gas and supplies. For backup safety, we also brought in an ultralight aircraft and an experienced aviator to fly it. Locals from Menzies Landing, a tiny settlement nearby, were hired as porters. Guyana, the only English-speaking country in South America, has a small population of approximately 700,000. British colonial rule brought Indians from India and Africans from the Caribbean. The native Amerindian population has shrunk to a mere 3%. Many of these men here are Rastafarians. This rough and tumble lot normally works as diamond miners.
Rambo! Just like Rambo! Even rougher than Rambo!
We set up camp in a clearing that provided protection from high winds. From the very first day, Graham Dorrington would struggle with a mess of engine parts, tools and wires. In attempting to unravel the mess, his luck would be elusive up until the very end.
Trouble is finding anything around here. This is the switch unit and the central. They're just above my head, and the central switch will control the tail motor, and the side switches will control how we go up and down. It'll be very important.
We did not know then that this particular switch would cause a huge problem later.
And then on the end will be an electric motor. Let's get that motor out of the box here. This is actually interesting motor because it's designed by somebody called Lynch in England. He never went to university and doesn't know any mathematics and stuff like that, but he taught himself electrical engineering. And it turns out the motor he's made is one of the world's leading motors in terms of power and mass. And he's developed his own kind of sort of algebra to do that, but no other person, no academic can understand what he's doing, but he seems to know more than many academics and electrical engineering departments, because this motor's very, very good performance, the best I could find. Most of the time we'll just be drifting with all the motors off. At least I'm hoping. It'd be lovely just to be above the canopy with complete silence. And I just think that today, have you not noticed that so many aircraft think that everything's so noisy, and when you get a bit of peace and quiet, just quiet, then you have a chance to think. Just quietly floating above the forest in those mists. Of course, in a way, there's always going to be this, at the same time, in this lightness, in this kind of ethereal feeling of floating and in this mist. That'll be beautiful, but at the same time, my mind will always have this heaviness in it. It's not just the danger, it's that feeling of danger, that the thing could go wrong, but it's still the past. And I'm hoping that this project will finally, I don't know, at least prove that what we did way back in Sumatra was right, and that that Dieter Plug's vision was justified. In my life, I've only met a few men who've impressed me, and Dieter was one of them. He was a man that I don't have much respect for many people, but Dieter, when you met him, he was such a solid man and so generous, and he was such a bloody good cinematographer. He had made so many good wildlife films, and when he died in 1993, April 3rd, it just seemed totally unjust, because he was just at the start of a major project.
When you make a wildlife film, one of the most important things is, of course, to know about your subject. But as I'm not a scientist in the way of having detailed studies or have studied in detail animals or their behavior, I have to refer to experts who know. One of the most extraordinary characters I've ever met was Adrian de Schrijver. Adrian took us into the forest, confronted us with the gorillas, and we got charged and charged and charged again. And I think, and I'm sure, if I would have even flinched once and would have dropped the camera or would have run or turned around, Adrian would have said, well, this is obviously not the right man to make this film. Adrian de Schrijver had this orphaned baby gorilla, and one day he decided to introduce it into the forest, to let it know the sights and the sounds. And suddenly we sensed the gorillas were right close. And Adrian stood there with the baby gorilla on his arm. And suddenly the gorilla called in a way it had never called before. It was really, there was a strange feeling. It was all quiet. And suddenly we saw the leaves move, and there was Hannibal first, who looked at us. And I sensed there was something going to happen, which really we shall never forget. Hannibal suddenly called, and Casimir answered from the background. And Adrian was very, very nervous, and we all realized this is a situation which really can end up in something terrible.
Casimir!
Casimir came and he screamed and just charged Adrian, and Adrian literally had no other chance than to drop the baby gorilla, because if he would have kept it, we all convinced that Casimir would have killed him, although he knew him very well for many years. Wildlife filming can be very dangerous, I think, when one gets into a situation which is created by humans. In Sri Lanka, we had a situation where there were elephants isolated in small pockets of forest in amongst plantations. They were shot at by people every day, and so they were very, very dangerous indeed. So we went in there and we got into a very dangerous situation. In fact, the elephant ran right over me, and I was very lucky to say that the camera was flung from my hands and it still kept on running.
For 11 years, I felt the weight of guilt about that accident. It was a stupid, meaningless accident, and I went over it many, many times in detail, trying to find exactly what went wrong, all the technical facts, chasing around like a vicious circle over and over again, sometimes twice a day, every day, more than that, never finding an answer. He knew the risks, he accepted his responsibility, and he trusts me in my judgment. And in fact, he showed great respect to me. And I know I'm not responsible for the detail of the accident, but if I hadn't had the dream in the first place, if I hadn't had the idea of doing this, then it would never have happened. I mean, he would probably be alive and filming today. So, it's 9.7 metres in diameter. When we lay it out, it's spread right across this tarpaulin. Life couldn't be better. It couldn't be better.
What's your problem in there?
Well, we've got the valve tangled up with electrical wires. Everything in our life, nuts, ropes never untangle themselves, they tangle up. They become complex with time. It's because human beings want them to be untangled. Maybe that's our mistake. We're trying to impose order on this chaotic universe.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Net, which way is it?
Come towards, turn 90 degrees,
Yeah.
start crawling, and I'll tell you which direction. That's perfectly right. That's a good direction. Very good, very good. You're coming right towards me now. I'll open it up for you here. This is the seam where you follow.
Don't open
Now
up
you
too
can
far.
see me?
No, I can't look at it.
Yeah, but you're completely in the right direction. Absolutely perfect.
That's okay, don't open it up.
No,
You've let
no.
the air in it. That's not good.
No, just look it so you get. Okay.
Gosh, it's hot in there. So I've just discovered when you go in there, there's two electrical connections. You have a male and a female connection, and I've made a mistake and I put two female connectors together, so I've got to change the connectors. So I've got to go back in there and do it again. But it should take about 10 minutes. So. So it's going to fill up with 480 cubic meters of helium. That's quite small by airship standards. In fact, this will be one of the smallest airships ever built in the world. Most airships are about 2,000 cubic meters, so it's relatively small. But for me, this is a big day. The gondola attaches in 6 places. Just to make sure we got all the lines attached in the right order. Don't do it tight, easy.
No?
Hold it back up that way a bit. Come on, go that way. That way, that way, that way, that way, that way, that way, that way. You're just turning, you're walking off to one side. That's fine. Okay, down. Everyone's staying on their line. That's looking good. Right, you guys have got to come this way. In a bit. It's all about confronting chaos, impending chaos. It's a very real possibility at the moment, with a storm coming in from the northwest. I'm a little bit worried that the airship's too high off the ground and not properly secured, not filled with helium. So we're getting a bit nervous here. Well, as you can see, we've got a bit of a storm here, just a light storm. There's a bigger one coming in, apparently. It's very black out there. So, in the next hour, we're going to find out whether this airship can take the full force of this storm. I think I've got a 50-50 chance. Quite nice actually, it's quite cooling, quite relaxing to know that all your work you've been working on for several years will just be destroyed in a few minutes, but that's nothing, that's life. It's doing quite well at the moment. Could easily break any second now though. Yes! Whoa! That's all right.
The night's rainstorm luckily did not cause any damage, and we moved on.
Now, Neil. We can chop them. Is that the right height, Klaus? Because we can chop those white things.
I check these things
After installing a camera, we checked the airship for buoyancy against its full payload. The ship is so balanced that spilling less than a bottle of water makes it lift off the ground. During this test, the airship remained strictly on tethers.
So each man has to carry a rope that they can attach to this. Yeah? Yeah.
Okay, let's turn around and
On the whole.
While we were doing this test, one of the local men drew our attention.
Without thrusters, it's going to be so damn difficult. Yeah.
That is a beautiful view. It has the sunset, and there is the balloon, just floating around aimlessly. Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, it's just fantastic. Yeah. I'm so fortunate enough to witness something of a gem. I'm a miner mostly, and this is like a diamond. Nice big diamond. Yeah, I love this. This is good. This is real good. There is this big white diamond just floating around in the sunrise. It's good. Yeah, I dedicate this to my mom somewhere in Spain. Malagua, I think it is. Yeah, this is beautiful. Mrs. Enid Abbott, good morning to you.
Just think about it for a second. Think about the fact you've got 7,900 miles of rock below you right now. Wherever you're sitting on the planet, you've got 7,900 miles of rock. Try to imagine that huge amount of rock. I jump! Gravity is a force that pulls me down. You can't escape it unless you have something like a helium balloon or wings, like those swifts. Those swifts have got a lovely Latin name, Aeronautis. Isn't that a beautiful name? The way they dive down in their free flight, becoming weightless before they dip into those falls. Isn't that beautiful?
Das ist ja unglaublich! Unglaublich! Geht hier runter! Nein,
Out of curiosity, our physician on location, an expert mountain climber, decided to have a look for himself. He wanted to see the mysterious nesting place of the swifts. From the bottom of the falls, the gigantic cave is inaccessible and has resisted all attempts by explorers. We lowered a camera to him, hoping to gaze into the unknown. Later we decided not to show his footage. We will show only the image from the spinning camera as we pulled it back up on a rope.
Weiter. Gut. Okay. Applaus für euch. War anstrengend. Also man hat das Gefühl von Schwerelosigkeit am Anfang und ein Gefühl von tiefem Raum, der in einem schwarzen Nichts endet, wenn man da dahinter guckt.
Ich bin sicher, du warst der Erste, der das je gesehen hat.
Ja, vielleicht. Das ist zumindest bisschen was Exklusives. Insofern ist es ganz spannend, mal zu versuchen, hinter die Kulissen zu gucken, auch von so einem Wasserfall. Ja.
Shortly after our climber's experience, we asked an Amerindian former tribal leader how he views the cave.
If I had wings, one of the first thing I would like to know what behind there, because there's a home of the roost, where they roost, the swift roost, and nobody knows what behind, what lies, what story, what really is behind here. Never had wings. One of my first dreams is to go behind there to see what lies there. We have stories like the legend goes that behind there have huge, big snakes. Is living there that protect certain treasures like diamond, gold, whatever, protect there. I mean, that's a legend that says that.
Now, one of our climbers went down on a rope and looked into it with a camera.
Okay.
He saw what's in there.
I don't think they should ever publish it. I mean, what you see is yours. I mean, you keep it to yourself. But I don't think it should be published as a whole. Say, okay, this is behind here. It would lose the whole essence about our culture would tends to die away. We lose it.
But what we can reveal is the legend of how Kaieteur waterfall got its name. Probably before the discovery of the New World, savage tribes of cannibals swept through this region. The native people here found themselves on the brink of extinction. Kaie, their leader, took his canoe and plunged himself into the abyss. He sacrificed himself in order to save his people. Since then, the waterfall bears his name, Kaieteur, Kaie's Fall. It is believed that his face can be seen carved in the rock by the edge of the fall. Back in our camp, in anticipation of our first flight, we closely monitored the weather.
Our big problem is going to be wind, so we're measuring the wind speed and checking it doesn't go above 2 meters per second. Have you got a reading now?
Yeah, we've got calm reading
All right. And you got about 0.4 earlier on
early on.
when we switched it on.
Yeah. It's gonna be real calm today for this morning period.
And when do you think we've got rain?
I don't know. I don't think there will be rain. I see the swifts still flying.
He's called Redbeard.
I'm called Redbeard. My real name is Mark Anthony Yap. I'm from Guyana, Demerara River.
And you told me earlier you've got a mother.
Yeah,
And where's she living?
she's living in Spain, Malaga.
Oh, right.
Her name is Mrs. Enid Abbott.
And you want her to see this?
Yeah, I really do.
And you miss her?
I miss her a lot.
Right.
I haven't had her for the whole lifetime.
Right.
Okay.
Can you explain about your family?
Oh, my family has migrated to Europe at an early stage, maybe in the 60s or in the 70s. 8 sisters, 2 brothers. I've missed them really. My hope is that they do see the film and they will feel so happy to get in contact with the missing brother, the missing son, the lonely guy way up in Guyana.
Would you like to use this craft to fly to them?
Wow, I would like to use this craft to fly to them, yeah. Even if it takes a whole year or months, I would love to have this craft to fly to them. Maybe land on the rooftop, give them a surprise, yeah. Yeah, it would be beautiful, yeah, for me to be in an aircraft or in the morning. There is Mark Yap at their doorstep, saying hello, good morning, yeah.
That same morning, I had an argument with Graham Dorrington over the accident of 10 years past. We touched on issues of responsibility and principles. I had to confront him myself. Now, there's another point, you see. I cannot ask a cinematographer to man this airship together with you unless I've been on it myself.
Oh, I know, I understand that. I'm just saying I need to test it first.
You just don't do that. You just don't do that. And as an employer, you cannot ask anyone, and of course they have to take their own
I accept
decision.
that, but I think it should be tested first by me alone, and because we have a low buoyancy situation, there's a lot of technical reasons to go alone.
Graham, there's such a thing as follies. Yes, I accept that. But
This
kind
isn't
of sounds
this isn't a folly.
No, it is not a folly, but it would be stupid.
Why is it stupid? What's stupid about what I'm proposing?
It would be stupid to accept that you are flying without a camera on board. And I don't think it's just a plain stupidity. There are dignified stupidities, and there are heroic stupidities, and there's such a thing as stupid stupidities. And that would be a stupid stupidity, not to have a camera on board.
It's a bit
Just
pessimistic. It's like saying you're just going to have one flight.
No, I'm not saying that. Every single chance we have to take advantage of. I'm gonna fly. I'm gonna fly with you.
Well, I don't have much option then, do I? Do I have any options?
Okay.
Okay. Noch eine Sache, Werner.
Ja.
Wir haben darüber gesprochen, dass wir ihn hier raustragen. Er will partout Free Flight machen.
Erst draußen.
Ich bin dagegen. Sag's ihm bitte. Wir können es hier hochlassen, wir können es probieren. Eventuell
Und wenn das sicher ist, dann fliegen wir frei, ja.
Ja?
Okay.
Okay.
Aber sonst Kommando muss er haben an Bord. Und
Das ist
wenn,
klar.
wenn
Ja,
wir aussteigen, nur auf seine Anweisung.
Das ist auch
hin.
kein Problem.
Aber ich würde im Zweifelsfall auch selber Kommando geben, aussteigen. My thinking at that time, not expressed to Darrington, was that if we had a mishap, for example, developed a gash in the skin of the airship, which we could not repair, that this could be our one and only flight. This is why I insisted upon having a camera on board. In celluloid, we trust.
Is there no petrol set? Right. Check prop clearance. Can you move away, everyone? Move away from me.
Okay.
Right, everything's clear. Rear prop clear.
Bow thrust is
Bow
clear.
thrust is clear, thank you. Radios check, time
Radio
check,
check.
recorder temps, switch off batteries, click, blah blah blah. So, yeah. Clippers. I think we're ready to go. All off, all lines off.
Our liftoff was smooth. We kept the airship on tethers. As it seemed to be going so well, we decided on a free flight. The holding ropes were severed. But then, quickly, the airship got into trouble. I smelled smoke and saw that one of the engines had burned out. And shortly after that, pieces of metal and plastic flew around my ears as the propeller next to me had slammed into its protective rim. We decided to drop a line and make a quick, rather graceless landing.
Up, Graham! Up, your tail!
Pretty bad altogether. Awful.
But Graham, we'll sort it out.
No, it's pretty awful.
Hast du den nächsten?
There's no power. There's no forward power.
Look at the anemometer. You see it? Nothing.
It's not spinning.
Not spinning, so there's no indication.
That means it's zero.
Could be zero.
I was on full thrust and I was sort of flying backwards almost. Yeah?
Get off the ring.
Yeah.
I don't want to cut it.
For me, this is a nightmare flight. Every single technical problem that could go wrong has gone wrong. We had about 7 independent failures. The motors are overheating, and they didn't do that prior to test. We're underpowered, we don't have enough power to push forward. The servo motor at the back wasn't working, and we flew with a reverse rudder pedal, so that made life even more difficult. But there was a point that I had all engines running, and we were running backwards. And that is not a very comfortable situation to be in.
Graham, give me here.
Yeah.
And this was not the right procedure. You know what I now mean?
Well, I don't think there was a safety issue.
Let me tell you what,
Yeah.
just simply,
Those technical failures
then
would
it's full
occur
stop
anyway.
from my side.
Yeah.
This is not good airmanship, and this is not the right testing procedures when you fly aircrafts never flown before in these conditions, okay? I did that 5 or 7 times in my life, okay?
I think you're right, but I think the technical
you,
failures...
You won't do that again when I'm here on board.
What we did not realize at that time was that a main switch had malfunctioned and reversed the thrust of the tail engine. Studying our film days later, we noticed a strong turbulence at the tail section. While all engines pushed forwards, the most powerful one at the tail end was pulling backwards. Even though it was not so much a question of poor airmanship, for Dorrington it was still a devastating blow.
I feel like giving up, actually. I feel like... But if you gave up now, it would be stupid. I think it would be very stupid not to get the airship flying properly. It's just a question of effort and money, I think. Yeah.
Mark Anthony, would you like to fly?
Sure. That would be great. Yeah. That would be nice, real nice.
Mark Anthony's enthusiasm for this project is the only thing that is one of the few people that's been positive. Everyone else has been pretty negative. If you think about it, a person like Mark Anthony has grown up here 18 years and he's had no formal education, but he's got a lot of wisdom and he knows so much. And we come in here with all our technology, misplaced. But this guy's knowledge is worth more than all this education, in a sense. The fact he knows about little plants which antiseptic qualities for eyes could be a fantastic thing. The prospecting element of this project, the potential is there to go canopy prospecting. All this gold and silver mining is a waste of time. Gold and silver are useless to us. But there could be pharmaceuticals, curing pharmaceuticals in the canopy. Many biologists believe that the canopy is one of the most rich biodiverse areas of this planet, and yet it remains unexplored. This futile flight today and my stupid technical efforts, which were also not following procedures and making mistakes, okay, I accept all that, but it's just a stepping stone. It's just a stepping stone to a much greater potential.
We became curious about Mark Anthony's medicine and followed him on a foraging field trip not far from the waterfall.
I come to these dark places for these medicinal herbs. It's good for the eyes, any irritation or so. This here, it's good for arthritis. I use this also for like swellings and pains. And I have a bark that I normally use on wounds. This is covered, but this one has not been stitched. It's the bark that healed this wound here. So this is where I find these herbs. I love to come to this place here. I have a view of the falls. Right now there is a fog. And sometimes when it rains, I love to look at it through this little bubble, this little one drop of water. It's a magnificent view. When I look through there, there's the falls, beautiful. There it is, 4 times the height of Niagara. One drop of water.
Mark Anthony, do you see a whole universe in this one single drop of water?
I cannot hear what you say, for the thunder of what you are.
After a week of repairs and improvements, the airship flew again. This day, we kept it strictly on tethers. As days went by and things improved, there was one dangerous dream lingering: to fly the airship over the falls. Prudence demanded a test.
We're just using these balloons to test the turbulence levels above the area of the falls. We're thinking whether it's possible to fly the airship over there, but I'm worried it gets sucked down by the downdraft. And we've also filled these glasses with champagne to make them nuclear buoyant. And it's an offering to the waterfalls themselves, the monster in the waterfalls. This is Jason, he works in the kitchen, and he loves to dance.
Yes, I love to dance and I love to do the moonwalk at night right out here.
Okay. Go! Woo!
The second test showed the power of the downdraft even more graphically. A breeze blew the balloons upriver, but then the suction pulled them back. For a while, they seemed to hold their own, but we knew there and then that any attempt to fly the airship over this would inevitably prove fatal.
"11 years ago, Dieter Plager died in Sumatra in an accident in a project where I was working with him. We're using a one-man airship, a small airship, to film the forest canopy. I flew the airship first a few times, and then he flew it, and it was going very well, the project. On the day of his accident, we woke up and the atmosphere was very somber. I think it's possible that his wife and him had a very big argument at night, and there was a tension. Maybe she had a premonition about what was going to happen. He took off in the morning, a little bit late, there were lots of delays. He decided to mount the camera on the front of the airship looking back at him. Took off a little bit late and there was a slight wind, not much, it was very calm. The airship flew up a river just like this, calmly disappeared over the canopy. It circled, we could see it in the distance going across the canopy while he was filming. But it started getting a little bit higher than I expected, and there seemed to be a problem. Then we radioed him, and the first problem we had was that the radios didn't work. They hadn't been charged properly. The airship descended some way away over the canopy, and one member of the team took bearings to see where it would come down. He stood on a big cliff ledge and watched where it came down. And then very calmly, very professionally, we arranged a team to go out and meet the airship. But I could see the airship up on a tree, perched on a tree. With Dieter was up there sitting in the seat, quite calmly. In fact, I watched him sitting there as some birds passed above. And he managed to lift the nose, but the camera that he'd put at the start was caught on a branch and it wouldn't loosen and he couldn't reach it. I saw him unbuckle his seat, but he wasn't wearing a harness and he tried to reach out to the camera. We waited again and I saw this big bank of clouds getting closer and closer. It was a light blue sky like we have now, but this cloud was a big grey blank coming in. And I could see the rustling of the treetops. And then it just moved in very rapidly. And I could see the frame of the airship on the tree rocking like a bronco. And I could see Dieter holding on. And then something I didn't quite believe, I saw it rock really hard and it broke the frame of the airship. And I saw him lurch forwards and fall out. The tree was maybe 50 or 70 meters high. And I knew that if somebody fell from that, they would be killed. Well, that's what I realised, but I just didn't believe it. And so I ran back into the forest. It was very dark in there. When you looked up, it was pitch black. Just little vague lights from the light coming through. But he hadn't fallen, and I was I thought, well, I must have been mistaken. I must have dreamt it. I waited a period of about 5 minutes and the others waited, and Freedom was with me, just told me to shh, be quiet. We heard some cracking of branches. And what had happened, another member of the team, Marcus, had climbed very cleverly up another tree. The tree he was on was dead and breaking anyway, but Marcus had climbed another tree and got within 2 meters, I found out later, of Dieter. And the airship was lodged with Dieter holding on to the part of the airship or part of a branch. And he very calmly said to Marcus, pull me over. And Marcus pulled the rope towards him. And this must have dislodged the airship from where it was. And then Dieter did fall. I was standing at the base of the canopy, and then I saw something that I'll never forget. I saw this man coming down, holding his head, lying on his side, falling through the air past me. It was like in slow motion. I can still see that. Even though it happened very rapidly, I could still see it falling. And then I heard him hit the ground with a thud. The terrible thing is, it was like meat in a butcher's shop, slamming down on the ground. The ground was soft and peaty, and we thought he was dead at first. He was half buried in this peat. He'd lost an eye, and so he looked a bit of a mess. And one of the guys, Rob, was really fantastic. People come into their own in this situation, and I was just lost. The first thing I said was just Jesus Christ. And I was just lost. Because I didn't believe what had happened. But Rob, he was like a brilliant nurse. And he went over to this guy, and we assumed he was dead. But as I looked down at Dieter, I realised he was alive because his other eye opened. And then Freedom was brilliant because we just, in lightning speed, put together a stretcher. We took off our shirts, tied the stretcher, and very carefully lifted him onto the stretcher. We got him across the river with 2 Indonesian porters. And there was a mud track on the far side of the bank. We got him there. But when I got him to the far side, it was clear his breathing was getting worse. He had this sort of moaning sound, but then he started sounding calmer. And I said to him, the last thing I said to him is that something's face, I don't know, I just said, you're looking better, Dieter. Which of course he wasn't. And we lifted him up on this mud path. It was a very narrow ledge, and there was a terrible moment at that point where we actually felt we were going to slip down the bank and his body would fall into the river. And 4 of us were concentrating hard on doing this. And just as we reached the canopy height, we heard him stop breathing. I couldn't look back because I was at the front. We got to the top of the road, and I looked at him, and I've never seen a dead body before in my life. And I looked at his body and I realised he was dead. I washed his blood in the river from the cloth of my shirt. And I watched the blood go down in the river. It was the last I really saw of him.
After some more and very encouraging tests, we felt safe enough to fly the airship completely free. It carried safety devices, such as long ropes to bail out with, a radio, and a GPS positioning device. In case it got blown far out into the jungle, our ultralight kept circling close by. Finally, the ship could do the work it was designed for. That morning, it even ventured out to the tiny settlement of Menzies Landing. Everyone was still sleeping. Geh mal ganz nahe hin. Gut. Good morning, sir. Have a look what's flying there. Just have a look.
Want to see this morning?
Just have a look what's flying there.
White diamond. White diamond? Is that?
It even dipped into the Potaro River upstream from the waterfall.
That's good.
And then we hauled the airship in.
Dream about this kind of floating. You really do. After you've flown, you dream about flying around just the same. Lots of people have
Done a great job, man.
Yeah.
You're becoming a perfectionist.
I don't know. There's only one word to describe that. It was today. It was heaven. It was just still up there. Beautiful. It's I can still feel myself flying around out there. You know, like if you've done anything, you still have when you run round, you spin round, you feel like you're still spinning. I still feel like I'm floating. My body is just lifting off the ground now. I'm high. High on the helium. This is levity now, knowing when it's done. This is just, well, honestly speaking, one hell of a relief. I think you know the feeling you get. DJ Plaga, if he knew what was happening today. He's such a god.
We felt the right thing now would be to leave Darrington alone and have a complete change of setting. A few miles downriver from the waterfall, Brazilians operate a diamond mine. We were searching for a real white diamond.
White diamond.
More of it, if it's good to you.
As a gift, Darrington offered Mark Anthony a chance to fly. He seemed to be somber.
Oh, this pleasant morning, I'm about to fly. And surely I would like to take my rooster with me. He's somewhere around. I would like to take him on this flight.
Why your rooster?
Oh, my rooster means so much to me. Early in the morning at 5:30 he crows. And then he crows again when there's some change of weather patterns. He's such a lovely guy, my rooster. I would like to take him with me on this voyage. First flight for me in this lovely balloon, this creation. Yeah.
Yeah, it needs one more on this side, please.
Of course, Mark Anthony did not expect to fly to Europe to meet his family. Something else was on his mind.
It's beautiful up here, flying around. I should have had my rooster here with me for the world to see. His name is Red. He has 5 wives, 5 hens. So I get 5 eggs every morning. Yeah, my rooster is good. All days roosting his hens. I enjoy every second of it. Yeah. I'm actually flying. Yeah. I'm light, confident. Yeah. Come, Red.
Having heard such wondrous things about Mark Anthony's friend, we were curious to meet his splendid rooster.
He's very good. He loves me, you know. He's my good friend. There he goes. He's off to his wife with 5 hens. Oh, I love the red rooster very much from the time he was a little chicken. He was born here on Mendes Land and hatched. His father, the other elder rooster, kind of like controls the other hen. And when he was growing up, his father used to kind of beat him up to be off the hens. And after he had became 1 year, 2 months, he started to resist his father. Now he has banished his father from the land. So he's the king of the land right now, this red rooster. Yeah.
You know, Mark Anthony, I had this strange feeling when I landed in the village that the little Amerindian children couldn't see the airship. I expected them to be all excited and jubilant, but they were very placid and very sort of quiet. And they just, it's like the airship didn't exist. They looked straight through it, like it was invisible. I was surprised by their reaction.
Maybe it's because Amerindian children are always silent.
Yeah. No, I was just thinking about perception. I was thinking about James Cook. It's reported that when James Cook arrived on his ship in New Zealand, the Maoris just couldn't see it. They just couldn't see it right in front of them. It was outside their world of ideas. It didn't exist for them. They couldn't comprehend it. And for me, it was like these little children. They just hadn't seen anything like this before, and they just ignored the airship. They could see me, but they couldn't see the airship. I was sure of it. It was just too outside their world, I think. That's what I had the feeling. I think perception is a strange thing. Much stranger than we think. I think these swifts, they live 5 times faster than us. You know, they actually live, they perceive things 5 times the rate because they move so much faster than us. 5 or 10 times faster. We must be like cold statues to them, slow-moving, numberless creatures, and they're moving so gracefully. Wow, I've been told that there's over 1 million swifts living at these waterfalls. Can that be true?
Yeah, they're all 1 million.
Why do they live behind the falls, do you think? Why do they go there?
The falls is some kind of defense for their kingdom.
Yeah, secret kingdom. It's like a big concert. They just, like shoals of fish, suddenly they just move and dive down all together and they move backwards and forwards. It's like there's some sort of music controlling them. See how they swirl around and then suddenly they all decide to swoop. They look real. Look, here they come.
Tigano gamalia wa wera weyama. Tigano gamalia wa wera weyama. Tigano gamalia wa wera weyama. Wera weyama. Wera weyama. Tigamo gamulia wa wera weyama. Gamu gamu leo wa wela weyama. Gamu gamu leo wa wela weyama. Wela weyama. Wela weyama. Gamu gamu leo wa wela weyama. Gamu gamu leo wa wela weyama. Gamu gamu leo wa wela weyama. Wela weyama. Wela weyama. Gamu gamu leo wa wela weyama. Gamu gamu leo wa